That is a good way to get things rolling. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Arvanauts. Welcome all to day 2 of ArvCon2024. This is to benefit the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation. It is our 10th annual ArvCon, and we could not be more excited about the way things got started. We got things rolling yesterday, day 1 of ArvCon, to benefit Damon Runyon with Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks, and all they did was raise $1,220 in about 3 hours, including our largest single donation I think that we've ever had, an anonymous donation of $1,000. A lot of other people contributed as well. We had a ton of giveaways. We had all of this other stuff. It was absolutely amazing, and I am just so incredibly grateful and excited that we had that happen, and I'm so excited that you are back with us today as we get ready for the awesomeness known as ArvCon 2024 Day 2. Before we get started, just a couple of notes which are super, super important that you all need to know, and I think for this I'm going to reveal myself. Hello, I am here. I am present. So first of all, 2 quick things. One, you'll see there's a slight discrepancy there. That's because someone was having trouble using the Tiltify page to donate last night. So it's actually 1220, not 1200. But nonetheless, we've got that. Configuration Queen gifted a tier 1 sub to Damon Runyon. Yay! And Damon Runyon has done this for several months because when they're in here, they usually get a gift sub given. Thank you, Configuration Queen. That's very kind of you. So we are here and we are ready to go. And let me remind you about a couple of things that we need to know before we get the scientists on here. The first is this is a big day with a lot of events, and I'm going to be very busy running things. The mods are going to be very busy running things, including a bunch of giveaways and stuff like that. So what that means is I need all of your help. I need your help to spread the word. For all of those who have done that so far, thank you, and please keep it up. And I'm also going to need your help because we need to be able to let people know about this and to donate to this amazing cause. 1220 is an amazing first day. It really is a really, really good first day, but we need another really, really good second day so we can stay on track. How do you do that? Very simple. Exclamation point ArvCon gives you some of the details here, but exclamation point donate is where you can actually see the Tiltify link that will bring you over where you can donate. You can use PayPal for this. You can use international. You can use credit cards for this. You can use, if you're international, you can donate to this as well. It is not limited to the United States, and obviously cancer is not limited to the United States. This is hugely important research being done by these scientists, as you're about to hear for yourselves when I introduce them. So I need your help to be able to let people know about this, to be able to spread the word, and to do this really fast and quickly, and to build up this momentum as well. I also want to point out that for those of you who are able to donate generously, please do so. For those of you who are not able to do that or not in a position to do that, I want to repeat that in no way do I feel or should you feel guilty or sad or sorry. Simply your presence here is hugely important. Spreading the word is hugely important, and I want that to be made clear. Even though it is true that money is sort of the goal here, we're trying to raise that $5,000 goal and break it. We've raised over $30,000 in the last 9 years. We're continuing to push here. That doesn't mean that anything else that you're doing isn't really significant. So please, your presence, spreading the word, letting people know, positive, vibes, all of that stuff also really matters. And so please keep that in mind. But again, hit that donate link early and often because it is super important, and we need that help as we go through. So thank you. All right. With all that said, I am now going to unmute myself, and the folks know we are ready to go. And what I'm about to reveal to you, and I apologize if I interrupted their conversations with anything, and now I'm going to bring you over here. Now, before I show this, chat, I just need you all to know that what you are about to see is the brand new Star Wars overlay designed by our very own Shadowed Mage for the Star Wars game, which is going to be happening later this afternoon with these same amazing scientists. That's right. They are not just heroes of cancer research. They are also heroes of the universe. And so you're going to get a chance to see this in just a moment. So when you do that, I want a Marvel effect, okay? I better see some hype in chat and some, I can't believe I've seen, holy cow. These are the people we needed. I can't even get finished before there's a, wow. Dragon Spear has donated $224 to Damon Runyon. I can't even get over to the splash screen, Dragon. Thank you very much. That also makes Dragon Spear the top donor so far because the anonymous one is anonymous. So, and that means he is in the running currently. I expect a battle between him and several of the others for doing that. Thank you so much, Dragon Spear. Very, very generous person. So 1424. Now I'm going to go over to reveal this. That's right. Here they are. You can see them. They exist. They are in the flesh. and they are here with us. Two of them are previous guests of our ArvCon festivities, and one, of course, is new. And I will begin with the new person, if that's okay. And this is Dr. Hannah Grunwald. Hannah, thank you so much again for doing this. And I guess I just want to say, how are you feeling? That, as you said, you're the newbie here. So are you feeling, excited, uncertain, unclear? How are you feeling about the ArvCon experience as you get started here?
I could not be more excited. As soon as I heard that this was a fundraiser that existed in the universe, I knew I had to be part of it. So I'm literally I'm at a wedding of a friend from grad school in Eugene, Oregon right now, but I insisted on doing this anyway. And I'm really, really excited to be part of it. Um, it's such a what a fun and intriguing and novel way to raise money for such an important organization.
Oh, that's great. Well, and I'm thank you for and thank your friend as well for lending you to us for a few hours. Because we have like strict time restrictions. This person has to be possibly killed off so they can go to a wedding. That's not what's going to happen. I'm not saying, but anyway. But thank you so much, Hannah. I'll come back to you in just a second. I also want to say hello to Sukrit Singh, who is back with us again. Sukrit was here a couple of years ago, I believe it was. So welcome back, Sukrit. How are you? How are you feeling about this version of your preparation for this version of ArvCon 2024?
I'm feeling great. I have long been someone who dreams about finding ways that we can engage with things like gaming and streaming and do that to talk about science and talk about the work we do as well as everything. So this is sort of one of the funnest things I ever get to do every so often is be part of these kinds of experiences. Actually, it's funny. I also am traveling for a wedding right now, so I'm actually in Chicago at
It's
the
not the
moment.
same wedding, is it? I was just make sure.
No,
Okay,
no,
all right.
it would be very funny if it
Yeah.
was. No, but it's one of those things where I was contacted with the opportunity, and I was like, I'm in. Like, say less. I will be there to play games for science. I'm in. Yeah.
Oh, I am very excited, and so yes, Damon Runyon, man of the match. Yes, before I get to the last scientist, let me just also thank. I know Damon Runyon's in chat. Megan McCurdy, who's the director of communications and PR at Damon Runyon, is the one who has tirelessly assembled these scientists over the last few years, and I really mean it. It makes such a big difference to have an organization that, despite Damon Runyon's size and reach and the amount of money that they have, in a way, kind of adopted our thing, which we've tried to develop and build over the last decade. That really means a lot. So thank you. Quick shout out to Megan for bringing these people together. Last scientist that we have here, also a return guest, is Haripriya Vaidehi Narayanan. Hari, it's good to see you. Thank you for being back. How are you feeling about the second iteration for you of ArvCon?
So good. When Megan said this was going to happen again and they were looking for someone, I said, please ask me first. Don't ask anyone else before me. And it's a lovely summer morning in LA, but this is the best thing I could be doing right now.
That's awesome. Now, you're not at a wedding, are you? You're not going to a wedding? No. Okay, all
No,
right.
I'm going to the beach, but
Okay, well that's okay. That's very cool. Yeah. I want to point out that one of the things I really love about this is the fact that for Sukrit and Hari, that they both were like, please, can we do it again? And I'm like, that's exactly what I want, because I have such incredible respect for what you folks do. Let's talk a little bit about your research first. I'll start with Hannah. Hannah, I, as always, am fascinated, and I read Megan sent along details about some of the research you're doing, but I, as a layman, do not want to be the one explaining it. Can you tell us a little bit about the research that you've done and maybe what Damon Runyon specifically is doing to help with that?
Yeah. So I'm a basic biologist. I spend a lot of time thinking about some of the fundamental genetic rules that allow different organisms to look the way they do. And on the face of it, that doesn't have a lot to do with cancer, except that, of course, cancer is driven by these genetic mutations that change the way
Sure.
that cells interact with one another.
Sure.
So, so I'm kind of digging into some of those basic rules by thinking broadly about evolution, because over the course of evolution, you get these same kinds of genetic changes that change cell behaviors, that change tissues, that change animals. So right now I'm thinking about cave fish. Cave fish are literally fish that live in caves. There's lots of different species of them, but I look at a species called the Mexican tetra, something like 200,000 years ago. A bunch of fish washed into these caves, and over the course of a very short time in evolution, They evolve so they look very different. They have no pigment. They have no eyes at all. They just have like skin over eye sockets. They have very different metabolisms because they only eat every once in a while when food washes into the caves. Um, they're super, super interesting in a number of ways. But what they are is something that we can compare to the fish that exist in the river and ask about those very specific genetic changes and what they do and how they inform these downstream effects. And in particular, I'm interested in the mutations that exist in the river fish that are invisible and only really become visible when they're in the cave fish. And that's something that actually is really important in genetic disease in general. All of us, all four of us here, and everybody watching is carrying all sorts of mutations in their bodies that are predicted to be deleterious, that are predicted to be disease causing, whether or not we have that disease. And we still are not very good at predicting which combos of mutations really cause disease. And that's something that I think could really, really help us in the future. So I'm using these weird fish in order to tease that apart. And Damon Runyon is, oh, like my love for Damon Runyon cannot be expressed. They are so willing to take chances on truly weird projects where you don't know if the outcome is going to be brilliant, but it has the possibility to be a true change, a true advancement. You know what I mean? It's very easy to be sure that incremental research is going to find something eventually, but it's never going to find something really big. And I feel like Damon Runyon takes these big chances on projects that on the face of it don't seem obvious. And I mean, I'm not saying my research is going to be like the brilliant thing, but Damon Runyon invests in so many cool different scientists that are doing cool, weird research that some of us are going to find something that really allows for big advances in how we treat disease.
Wow, that is wild. I can't. Or several years ago, I remember. I believe it was Bassent. I have to find it. I need to remember the exact who it was. Who was talking about doing research of ant colonies specific to the way. It's absolutely mind blowing to me that like this makes all kinds of sense. I can't even say how much respect I have for what the organization, the foundation, does for this. So very, very cool. And we have another. What did I just get? We just got a. Hold on. I'm looking at the wrong page. Okay. Thank you, Chrono Travis. Another $50 to Damon Runyon. Cancer is lame. Boy, you got that right. Also, Dragon Spear would not forgive me if I didn't mention Go Manchester United, the 2024 FA Cup winners. Also down with cancer, period. Yes, listen, I'm on board with all of that. I'll happily wear the Man U jersey if it means that we get more money for Damon Runyon. Thank you so much, Chrono Travis, for that. Well, let me jump down to Sukrit. So I remember also being super fascinated in the research you were talking about a couple of years ago, Sukrit, and what I'm curious about from you is you're a little further along. So can you explain the research you did? And then since you're further along in that research, how did, Damon Runyon help in sort of processing that?
Yeah, no, so as a recap, what I'm really interested in is drug resistance, but through the lens of biophysics. So I'm a biophysicist by training, particularly thinking about things at the atomic level and modeling protein structures and in fully atomic detail, and every atom is described explicitly as these balls and springs that you can watch sort of move around and these proteins change shape. And it turns out that has huge impacts on how the targets that we look at when we're talking about cancer drug targeting will actually function, and how do mutations impact the shape changing and the ensemble, as we call the ensemble of shapes that they can adopt to actually impart either disease causing phenotypes, or what I'm more interested in is how when you have these cancerous versions of these drugs, or even the regular versions of these drug targets and these proteins, if you insert other mutations, do they become more ligand resistant or less drug resistant as a result, or maybe even drug sensitive upon mutation happening? So understanding how these mutations and understanding how we can make sense of those has sort of been the broad objective that I've really been interested in. And so over the past couple of years, one of the challenges we've encountered is how hard it is to actually generate and collect that kind of data at the scale you need to actually answer these questions. And so one of the challenges has been, how do we actually do this in a way that isn't relying on closed source software, or we have to shell out $10,000 a year, but can we actually spend the time to do it properly in an open source software manner so that other people around the world can also access the tools we're building
Yeah.
to answer the similar types of questions, because these are still fundamental problems that have impacts not just with cancer drug resistance, but also antibiotic resistance and other kinds of studies as a whole. So I'm broadly interested in how we can how we've been able to scale up the tools that we have and spin up new tools. And so a lot of what I do, and this is my own plug here, is we work a lot with this consortium called Folding at Home, which our lab is a member of, and it's this consortium of labs around the world that use the power of citizen science and citizen scientists who donate their idle GPU time and idle CPU time, like on any gaming desktop. They just download an app, and they actually help us run these calculations. So they help us run these predictions and whether or not whether or not this mutation is predicted to cause the target to resist the drug binding, or whether it actually causes a target to maybe overactivate and become overactive in the presence of in the presence of the mutation to compensate for the presence of the drug in the first place. And so being able to capture these at a citizen science scale with tens of thousands of folks helping us out is hugely helpful, because we're able to actually collect the amount of data we would actually need to answer these questions at such a fundamental scale. And Damon Runyon has been sort of invaluable in giving me the time and the chance necessary to actually implement these tools. So often, these kinds of science and basic science research does take some time and investment to sort of do everything right, and ensure everything is following certain rigorous standards and best practices. And Damon Runyon giving us this investment and giving me this time to spend thinking about these problems and implementing them and being part of these larger projects and consortia has been hugely helpful to actually pushing forward these ideas in a scalable way that we're not just restricted to cancer research, even though that's the primary focus, but we can extend these very quickly now to tackle hundreds of mutations at once, or other systems as well, which has always been sort of my broader interest, is understanding the impact of mutations on how drugs can bind or no longer bind.
That's again. I mean, it reminds me also of like if crypto were actually good, like if crypto were good for the world. There's a version of this in which instead we help cure disease. I want to say two things. First of all, Classicor, $50 just now for Damon Runyon. Thank you. In February, I lost an aunt to cancer. It is awful how common that experience is. Let us feck that shite disease. Couldn't say it better myself. Thank you, Classicor. So we're up to 1544 now. Again, exclamation point donate. Let's keep it up, everybody. I also want to make a note before I get to Hari about, again, I'm continually amazed by the value of interdisciplinary work. This is something as a humanities person I'm used to in other contexts, but in a scientific context, just getting people out of their silos. And this, it feels to me like even on the experimental level, Sukrit, a lot of what you're talking about is about getting people to talk to each other across scientific disciplines. And that's that there's a lot to that, which I'll come back to, but so very, very cool. Last, Hari, again, same question to you. You were also a little further along in your research as well, because we had you a couple of years back. So if you could tell me a little bit too, and tell us about what's the research that you've been working on, how has that research developed over the last couple of years, and what did Damon Runyon do in the process of making that happen?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, Greg. So what I do is kind of like try to push what's one of the new frontiers in fighting cancers, which is vaccines and immunotherapies. And that's literally teaching your body's own immune system how to fight off the tumor. And so to do that, I kind of think of the immune system as like this little computer that's continuously, processing what its response should be. And the inputs to this computer are basically whatever's going on in your body, right? Like, did you get some bacteria out there? Or is there a virus? Or is there some cancer cell that's starting to develop somewhere in some corner? And the output, of course, is like what we do as an organism or as an animal. Like we have a response. Do we fight this off? Do we get sick or not? Do we get a fever? Those are the outputs. And the processing is where everything gets really interesting, because this is like no computer that we have ever worked with. Nothing like the laptop that I'm talking to you on, right? It's like a bunch of immune cells. Every cell is slightly different from every other cells, and they're all busy talking to each other. And somehow through their group dynamic, they're sort of crowdsourcing the strategy of, okay, what do we do next? Do we make a fever in this organism, or do we go kill these cancer cells out here? They come to that decision. And what I study is the rules of this group dynamics that allows them to make the right kind of decision. And then how do we teach them to, tweak their group dynamics a little bit so that they make the kind of decision that we want them to make? If they're all just hanging out while somebody's like growing this big tumor inside, we're like, hey, look, wake up. There's something over there that you need to go fight. So that's what I'm really interested in. And I'm coming at it sort of like I don't know, like a physicist, studying the immune system. So we kind of pull out cells initially and we sort of like watch what they do and learn what the rules of the group dynamics are. And then we take those rules and they're super complicated. Imagine like 10,000 people in a room talking to each other and what a conversation that is, right? So we build computational models to sort of like figure out how these conversations fit together and then predict, okay, if we had all these 10,000 people in a room, what's the room going to do next? And then, were we actually right? Well, we actually take mouse models and, give them a little push and see whether whatever we predicted the mouse would do is actually right. So if it does, then, well, we guessed the rules correctly. And that's kind of where I'm trying to go with this, to figure out how immune cells talk to each other and how can we tweak that conversation to make them do what we want. And when I started with this work, I came from straight up physics and engineering. I knew how to build robots. I was probably better at making self-driving cars rather than doing anything with cancer. I didn't know anything about cancer research or immunology or whatever. And I was like, hey, let me go study the immune system, just the most complex system in the body. And I'm just blown away that Damon Runyon was willing to take a chance on someone like me coming out of left field and being like, I'm going to do this, crazy thing, even though I have no clue about the first thing that I'm doing right now. And without that support, I don't think I could have had that protected time to really learn everything that I need, like allowing someone like me to go play with cells and play with drugs and sort of like really build that knowledge and that intuition so that I could, create an idea that I could run with in the future. I think that's been incredibly special and I'm super, super grateful for that. And I'm also grateful to Damon Runyon in general for the amazing work that they do because over the last year, we've had a close family member, my husband's dad, who's had brain cancer, and just going through it from the side of the patient as well, and seeing what kind of a difference these innovations make in the clinic on an everyday basis, and the kind of work that Damon Runyon does to support not just me, but everybody else who's doing work that's so relevant to these situations. I appreciate this so much. And I appreciate all the viewers so much for supporting a cause like this. Thank you.
Can I also make a note that one of the great things about Damon Runyon also is how extraordinarily well-spoken and communicative and articulate about very complex topics everyone always is. And I'm extremely impressed with that as well. And it makes our job a lot easier who are out here in the field, so to speak, raising money for causes like this. It's very, very interesting. I will try to get to the Huntsman's question if I have time. We don't have a lot of time left because we have so many events we have to get to. But I do want to jump back to Hannah and ask you, so one of the things that we were talking about, and I think Hari brought it up here, is about sort of these personal connections. But I want to talk about that speaking across disciplines and getting out of silos. Is it your experience, and I'm wondering if Damon Runyon has helped with this, that getting people to talk to each other from different disciplines so that it doesn't feel as left field, that someone in physics is going to talk to someone in biology who will speak to someone then eventually in oncology, and you put this all together and you end up with some extraordinary movement? Like, is that becoming more prominent or more common in scientific circles? Is Damon Runyon helping push that? I'm curious about speaking across those disciplines, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, of course, it's variable in different parts of science and
Sure.
different, groups. I think one of the true values of Damon Runyon in particular, and also kind of this format of funding where you fund individuals for their ideas and you're not trying to like make a product necessarily.
Right.
I think that really makes it easier to bring people from very different like energies, very different disciplines together. And so actually Hari and I had the opportunity to meet at a conference for Damon Runyon a year ago, 2 years ago. Time is immaterial now. But it's so much fun to meet someone who thinks entirely differently than you do. And when you present your research to this person, they'll come back at you with a question, which is something you just could never have imagined. So actually, I know you haven't asked this yet, but I really want to make this parallel. So I DM a Dungeons and Dragons game, and one of the first things I learned about, as a DM was to stop preparing so much, because you can prepare all these things you think that your players are going to do, and they will go do something totally different, and it takes it in a direction that is more fun and weirder and more complicated than it ever would have been if you had come up with it on your own. And I feel like that's the true power of collaboration. That's the true power of having connections with people who don't do just what you do. And I think that there's science that would never, ever, ever exist if there was just one person who had thought about it. It only works because you have all these people thinking about it in very, very different ways and coming together. And anything that's making that happen is really valuable.
Yeah, that's well said. And yeah, that absolutely no, as we always say, no campaign survives contact with a player. At least no original concept is. And we have just had someone donate another Babylon Zool. Thank you for doing this. $100 more to Damon Runyon. Thank you so much, everybody. Keep it up. 1644 now we are up to. So we are rapidly closing in on 50% of our goal. Thank you. Yeah, so I agree entirely that there is a lot that can be learned. As I say, humanities professor and author, I'm often talking about the connections between game mastering, writing, communication, things like that. But in scientific ways as well, these things are how humans survived, not because of anything superior, I think, other than our ability to occasionally work in concert with each other. And sometimes not as much, but we work more in concert with each other, I think, than we're willing to even sometimes admit to ourselves. So it's good to foster those things. And that's what I think of when you respond that way. Sukrit, let me come to you, since you've had a chance to do this over time. I asked you how Damon Runyon has sort of processed and made it possible for you to pursue this. I guess I would ask, has your thinking about your initial research, you mentioned that things sort of just gathering the data at scale was something that was one of the big challenges. Were there other things that came up for you over time that you had to sort of adjust on the fly in the way that Hannah described? You had to make adjustments to it. Was the work that Damon Runyon did with you, did it make it possible for you to adjust, to be agile, I guess, to use a term, in the scientific research you were doing?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. It's sort of, and also in parallel with this interdiscipline. It ties in well with the interdisciplinary question you asked as well, where I'm a structural biophysicist by training. I think a lot of about things at like a much smaller protein structural scale with these atomic details and basic biochemistry, and to then be in environments like the ones Damon Runyon helps organize, where I'm talking a lot about cell level systems and cell systems level things, or organoid and organismal level things that that those are questions that I often just don't encounter in my hour-to-hour day-to-day thinking. And so being in those environments really helps me realize, oh, we should be tackling things a different way, or oh, there are actually other interesting questions that we should think about. And so it's not just about being able to, like, the challenge of collecting the data at scale is oftentimes a more physics and a computational problem that we have to tackle. But often the real help there becomes that we are able to pivot with the help of this kinds of exposure that Damon Runyon provides, is what are the useful questions we should be asking first, and what are the more direct, low-hanging fruit questions that we can help other folks tackle as well when it comes to what systems to work on, and what major like questions there are out there in sort of in cancer and in the cell level systems problems. And so it oftentimes becomes this really interesting like back and forth where we're generating some data unfolding at home and with the help of all those citizen scientists, and then we're also like, wait, this data set can be useful for two different things. And
Yeah.
now we have to think about how to split the analysis in two different ways, or oh, we also need to think about these other components with our problems. And so and Damon Runyon is so helpful with that because I have a co-mentor who's a purely experimental biochemist who is so helpful at sort of pointing out, oh, are these the relevant questions to ask? How can we sort of make sense and connect to the data sets that we generate to both to multiple problems at once?
Yeah.
And when we're doing this at scale, like, not just sitting there collecting one data set for one question, but making these as broadly useful as possible to the scientific community at large.
Very, very cool. And I love how so much of what you're talking about too goes back to this. Much of this is foundational work that has huge implications for everything else. You can't do this work on other stuff if you don't know some of these basics. That plus citizen sourcing is very amazing. Also, I would say helps break down some of the barriers perhaps between what scientists do and what ordinary people do, and how scientists and ordinary people are really just people speaking to each other about stuff that's important to everybody. Hari, let me ask you, if I may, about one of the things that really struck me about your answer was about playfulness, and about, you used that term several times, about playing with drugs and playing with these ideas and these concepts. And we know that play is generative to creativity. It's one of the things we do on this channel is play stuff, so we know that, right? But I guess I'm curious, we tend to think of extraordinarily serious business, and it is serious business, the work of science in all disciplines, but especially in trying to save people's lives, to improve people's lives in this work. But I want to ask, to the degree that Damon Runyon has helped you do this, I guess, is there a sense in which there is not just a joy of I'm doing good work, but a playfulness to it, a joy of the creativity that comes from the work that you've done in thinking about immune systems in a different way and so on? I don't know if I'm way off base, but I'm curious about playfulness in science as you've experienced it.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's such a great point, because animals learn by play. That's what we do. That's
Right.
how we're built to do it. And to me, it's actually really important, particularly so because I don't work alone in the lab. I work with a team of about 6 to 8 students. Many of them are undergrads. And if I'm going to get an 18-year-old and tell this 18-year-old to put in 10 hours of hard work, working with immune cells.
What do you mean? 18-year-olds love the grind. We all know.
Really? I've yet to hear that.
Yeah, maybe not.
But I think the thing that's made it really, I don't know, that's really kind of like drawn them in and sort of like given them this love for learning that sort of like pushes the work ahead and, kindles that passion for doing something interesting or something fruitful in them. It's been that sense of fun throughout. Like, hey, we collected all these cells. Now can we paint this graph in as many different colors as we can so that it looks beautiful? And look, it looks like a funky painting. And this clump of cells over here kind of looks like a witch's nose or something like that. So it's been really instrumental to me, I think, in like focusing people on a task that's difficult, maintaining that focus over time. And like you said, coming up with, if you can think of a witch's nose, you can think of crazy ideas for what cells are doing. It certainly stirs the pot.
No, it's really very, very cool. And as chat, of course, is eating this up because they're like, you mean playing is a good positive step that moves the ball forward? Yeah, it moves things forward. All right. Well, before I thank you to end and wrap up here, I do have to end with the most serious point of the day, which is how critically important it is, your experience with role-playing games. So, Hari, I'll start with you and work the other direction. I am sure that this has been your every thought, every waking second. No, I'm joking. But so what is it that draws you to? Why did you want to do this? I'm so happy you did. But what drew you to the idea of wanting to play a role-playing game in front of a group of strangers, so to speak, giving money for Damon Runyon? What interests you from a game point of view here?
Oh my God, I've only done this once before in my life. And that was at the previous ArvCon.
And it was great.
Was amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, I was like, why do I not know more people in my life who do this? Like, you guys are like my crowd for this almost. And, I just had to be back. It's something about taking yourself out of everyday life and putting yourself in this amazing fantasy world. And that's something I really love about fantasy altogether, that it allows you to think about very human things and very, things that are so relevant to human emotion and human life and human thought, but in a setting that's just absolutely not cluttered by real world considerations. And so you can explore pretty much everything without your real world biases getting in the way, right? And just that sense of freedom, that sense of a sandbox of something that's totally unexplored in this new world, and you get to like make it up on your own as you go along. That's just so appealing to me. I had to be back.
That's also that's a wonderful endorsement. I also have to say it's great because then you can just hand wave things that happen, like ships making noise in space in Star Wars. It's fine. Clearly, that's that's how it would work. Let me thank, by the way, the Raiders coming from Fleos' channel. The Questers are here. Screw cancer. Could not agree more. Thank you so much, Fleos, for that. We'll be hearing more from Fleos soon. That I really right on, Hari. I couldn't agree more with all that. All right, Sukrit. So we've talked about this on the all about this. We were just talking before about Star Wars games and Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and all that kind of stuff. So what has drawn you, let's say, to the tabletop side of things here? Like, what are you thinking about as you think, I really want to do this, as opposed to I have a controller in my hand? What's different about the tabletop thing for you?
I think it's I think for me, I've always enjoyed tabletop role-playing games in particular, because exactly what you said, you can bend the rules a little bit and you can play around with the rules. Like, when you have a controller in your hand, you're playing other kinds of games. There's a very fixed rule set that you're working with that is incredibly inflexible, which is part of the convenience of it as well. But part of the joy of tabletop role-playing games is almost the improv theater component of it. It's the
Yeah.
There are rules and but they're guidelines, and you can have fun with it, and you can play around with different ideas and explore different ways of approaching things. I just enjoy sort of that component in general of being able to have more flexible mechanics and have more creativity at the table, because it's not just you playing, it's multiple meeting of multiple minds and different ideas and experiences sort of informing how the story evolves and how everything happens over time and over the course of the session. And so it's a whole different kind of game in my mind that has its own separate like appeal and joy that comes from just exploring and being creative and collaborating that way.
Absolutely agree. And just before I get to Hannah, we have just had another $98.76 from Hilness, who says chaos must reign. It's very important to remember that when you're doing charity events, you want some people donating odd amounts and some people donating even amounts, because just like the pancakes waffles battle, someone's got to got to win, and Damon Runyon is winning in the process. Also, Hilness is now moved ahead, I think. Hilness, you're slightly trailing Dragonspear. So Hilness and Dragonspear are incredibly generous and often battle each other for top donator status in these things. So we're up to 1742.76. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's keep it up. I agree entirely. Whenever I feel like I'm running into walls in something in a video game, I'm like, man, I would not have this wall if I were in a tabletop environment with my friends. All right. Well, Hannah, this answer is something I asked Hannah before. I was like, so, have you, because we get all kinds of, sometimes like Hari had not had any experience with this before a couple of years ago. So I was like, have you had any experience? And I was like, yeah, I run several campaigns. I'm like, oh boy, I ran into I've been doing it since I was a child. But no. But so tell me, if you can, a little bit, just briefly, about why tabletop games for you, either as a scientist or separate from that. What is it that you found appealing about them for you?
If you cut me in half, you would just see the words theater kid, like right down the middle. So
right.
I feel like that's a big component of it. But the reason I love theater and the reason I love tabletop role-playing games is it's that freedom that both Sukrit and Hari were talking about, where you have infinite possibility space that you can encounter, and it allows you to be so brave in a way that you're not allowed to be in real life, right? You have all these social constraints and all these physical constraints in real life, and in this game you can try anything and you can become anything. And it really ends up being, it is about that playfulness. It is about opening up your mind. And I think that one of the reasons I love it, one of the reasons to go back to the idea of play in science, is that if you think too rigidly, you only ever get to think the same things, and it's straight up boring.
Yeah.
Like if you literally are living in a box, it's not as much fun. And being able to think in different ways, it's almost like there's a shower thought component. You're looking over here and suddenly you have a thought that allows you to bounce off in a different direction. So I think role-playing games let me think thoughts that I didn't even know I was allowed to think or could think or would think. And I haven't been doing it for years. I've only been DMing for like a year and a half now.
No, I just didn't want to be insulting. I have been doing it for almost 40 myself, so I don't want to be that guy when I'm just like, let me tell you. But again, I just before I'm going to let these folks go, they're going to be back with us for Star Wars. I just want to say quickly, though, a personal thank you to all three of you. I have mentioned this before on stream, but my mother passed away from breast cancer. My oldest friend last year passed away from a rare form of bone cancer that he was in clinical trials for at Yale, and that was, I mean, I'd known him for 44 years, and it's the effects of it are brutal. And what this is a chance for us to do, I saw earlier on that Babylon Zool in chat, both he and his wife and their cat are all survivors of cancer. And I wanted to mention that this is both for the people who have passed away and the people who are living and surviving because of the work this has done. So I wanted to say, before I tear up too much, to thank you all individually, because the work that you have done and that Damon Runyon as a whole does has an extraordinarily positive impact on the world, not just for the people who are dealing with cancer and its effects, but for people who are watching others go, oh, this is what happens when individuals come together in community to do something even larger than themselves and to advance the cause of human dignity and the quality of human life. So thank you personally to each of you, because it really does make a difference. And before I start crying, I'm going to get on out of here and I'm going to let these folks leave. But we will have them back in a couple of hours, chat, for some Star Wars as they will be heading to a galaxy far, far away to raise money for a galaxy near to us, which is this one right here. So thank you again to Hannah Grunwald, to Sukrit Singh, to Haripriya, Vaidehi, Narayanan, and we will have you folks back in just a couple of hours. Thank you so much. Chat, can we get some love for the scientists? Scientists, we'll have you back soon. Thank you again so much. Bye for now. Okay. There we go. Woo. Man, I don't know what to say about this other than just to say that I continue to be so incredibly inspired by what humans can accomplish when they put their minds to do so. I want you to remember that, chat. Every time you see the media sort of talking about everybody is a hateful, cynical, I offer you Exhibit A. This should be the remedy to all cynicism, the fact that innovation and thoughtfulness and care comes into play in this way. Extraordinary stuff. Also extraordinary, all of you for having given the money that you have so far. We are up to 1742.76, which is really awesome and amazing. Hope is an act of defiance. That's right. It's an effective one too. That's very well said. So thank you, Flayos, for the raid. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a Zoom link out and I'm going to get the Talisman folks on board and we're going to get rolling. Remember, chat, big announcement coming up. Major announcement, which is going to come at the beginning of Talisman Adventures. Then we have the Talisman Adventures finale. Then we will have those amazing scientists back for the Star Wars game, and then we will continue with ArvCon going on forward. So it's going to be great. Oh, you're right, I do. 17, you're right. I forgot about that, Echo. I was relying on the Tiltify. So it is now 1742.76. It's so big a number, I can't even keep it in there. Also, thank you again, Damon Runyon, for bringing those scientists on board, and it's just super inspirational to me. So thank you so much for that. There we go. 1742.76 out of 5,000. That's right, but we move the ball down the field slowly. So, and we're making progress. So thank you all. Let's get that number to 2K. All right, let's make it happen. So far, Expedition is the current leader out of the clubhouse, although that was a very credible effort. We've got $542.76 during the scientist interview. That's really good stuff. Can Talisman Adventures exceed that number? We are about to find out. I'm going to go get them on board. Please stick with us, and I will be right back to you after we have the Talisman people ready to go. Thank you all. Back in just a bit. Hold tight. All right, everybody. We are back and we are ready to go. Let me just get my camera started here. 1 second as I get that thing coordinated here. Thank you for the follow here. Let me just move this over. Okay, and let me do something which I didn't do last night and I need to remember to do now.